Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. We've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. We have Russ with us today behind his avatar there that Dylan sent to me earlier. Russ, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great. Great. It's good to have you here, Russ. Appreciate you being on tonight. Dylan, that was for you.
I don't even have to ask who set that up. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're wondering why are we starting 10 minutes late, it was literally just for that 3 seconds there for Dylan to do that. Also, Russ had to help bring the groceries in, so he's a good husband. So props to you, Russ.
Thank you. I try.
Yeah. And Kent, Casual Big Ten, here with us. Kent, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, and I just wanted to get this out of the way right at the beginning. I know a lot of people are here to wonder what our thoughts are on the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef. No other place they would rather hear it from than three white guys that are supposed to be talking about college basketball. They want to know what we think. We're going to get to that. That's going to be at the end, right? Everyone's got to stay tuned, right? We're getting to that?
Yeah. I actually would like it if Shedeur Sanders was a part of the beef. I know that's football, but, I'm all for it if, Kendrick Lamar and Drake start making songs about Shedeur Sanders as well.
That'd be amazing. They would eat him alive, by the way. That song was god-awful. Terrible song. I think it was only a clip on Twitter. It was like a 40-second clip. I think I got through half of that clip. It was bad.
It was not perfect timing, is what you're saying?
No. There's no good time to put a music out like that ever.
I love it. The Ohio podcast, Eric is checking in. Prayers for Skeeter tonight. Yes, Skeeter, our Missouri podcast host, or one of the hosts over there. He got into an accident at work. Unfortunately, lost a couple of his toes. Sent us an update in our DMs earlier today, and he's in good spirits, and things are going well, it sounds like, but definitely prayers for him. Hopefully he recovers well and things are okay there. So thank you for putting that there, Eric. And of course, Dylan's here. He says, new backdrop, Kent. He's seeing the hard work you're putting in, dude.
Yeah, man. I finally got my stuff moved to a more permanent location. I'm liking the setup. It feels better. I'm in here with the dogs in the crates, and got the, sports memorabilia behind me. That's actually my high school football helmet over, what is it, this shoulder? Yep.
Wow.
And still have it. Almost 20 years later. The skull and crossbones. I know we're getting off topic already, but the logo's actually on the other side of the helmet. The skull and crossbones, you only got that if you were a defensive starter. So watch out.
Humble brag there. A little flex.
Yeah.
Flex from Kent.
Yeah.
Where's your high school football helmet, Russ?
It's the leather one up in the. You can't see it. No, I'm sorry. I was shaking my head because Dylan's going off in the comments already. It was not in reference to Skeeter. Definitely prayers to Skeeter. But, sure. I knew Dylan would fall out of his chair if I knew anything about Drake or Kendrick Lamar. So,
yeah. Russ, we think you should just start a podcast about Russ or about Drake and Kendrick Lamar, this whole beef, and you just give your updates on the entire thing. So I'd listen for sure.
Yeah, we'd have like two or three people that listened. Yeah.
Me and Dylan, that's it.
I'm listening to that for sure. Hopefully he brings me on for that show.
Hey, absolutely. Everybody's invited, but you have to be like a middle-aged white guy. So
perfect. I'm in.
The only kind that can really talk about it. All right, guys. Hey, we're gonna get into it. So I did my best to make a graphic. If you can read that, I'm really impressed. I've zoomed in the entire time as I was making this graphic about the Big Ten opponents for 2024 and 2025. And when I finally zoomed out, I said, "Wow, that was awful." And I spent so much time on it. I was like, "Well, I can't not put it up." So. If you're looking at the graphic and you're like, JR, we can't read that. I know. I spent like 20 minutes on it. And
was it like one of those old school I Spies when you did that? Did you see like a shape when you backed back out or?
Pretty much. Yeah. That was pretty much how it was. So, and I was zoomed in way more than I thought I was. Like I thought I was just zoomed in a little bit, but anyway, let's talk some schedules here. Kent, let's start with you, man. What matchups are you looking forward to in the Big Ten with these matchups? Obviously, we have the West Coast teams, UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon. They're all going to play each other home and home. in this one. Some other ones that we do have Indiana in the home and home with Ohio State. We do have Indiana. They're going to be at home against Michigan. The Purdue, they are getting a home and home with Indiana. Is that a protected rivalry, Russ? Does that happen every single year?
I would hope so, but that's one of the things I looked up was I didn't see any notes about protected rivalries or home and homes when they released this schedule, just the schedule release, and they said that's it, and they didn't really put any more notes into it. So
I really hope they keep the home and homes with the rivalries. You do have Michigan and Michigan State. They have a home and home here, so it gives me hope that that's happening. But yeah, Kent, your general thoughts on what matchups and things like that here in the Big Ten next year that you're excited to see?
I'm just excited about seeing all of it, to be honest, just right off the top, because if I'm reading your perfect graphic correctly, which I think that I am, everyone gets to play everyone at least once, and that's exciting just off the rip with so many teams.
Yeah.
Obviously, you kind of got to play everybody because they're in the conference. But my favorite matchups, though, for next year, that I went off the teams that are playing twice for my favorites, and obviously, you have to start at the top, and next year at the top, it's going to be Purdue and Indiana, I think. So the fact that they're playing twice at both arenas, very excited about that. We'll get that matchup twice next year. And then for a completely different reason, I like Rutgers and Michigan playing twice because their teams have been built so differently. Obviously, Michigan starting with a new coach, kind of working through the transfer portal this offseason, and then all the new guys that are coming in for Rutgers and some guys that they lost, obviously. The way that they're doing it is different, and I'm excited because I think that there's high expectations for both of those teams. So we'll get to see that matchup twice. And then just one last note, too. I'm just generally excited about all the West Coast home games because if it's a late night Tuesday and, there's nothing else going on and we get Oregon versus anybody from the East Coast, Maryland, that's going to be something that I'm excited about because I stay up late and the games are going to be starting later. It kind of extends, the spread of when games are starting and when games are taking place. So that makes me happy because it feels like I'm watching more basketball. So just all those West Coast home games I'm also really excited about. So those would be the three highlights for me when I'm looking at this schedule. I do have some negatives, though. I can let Russ go on his highlights first if you'd like. Oh, I think you're on mute right now, JR.
Let's get to this comment really fast, and then we'll get to Russ, and then we'll get to some negatives there. Philip says excited Oregon will have a new court. Me too, Philip. I did not want to look at that awful piece of hardwood if I ever saw my team play there. Russ, your thoughts on the schedule?
Yeah, so I mean I kind of went, where Kent finished there and looked at how the new teams are tied into the conference because you get excited about matchups like Purdue IU, Illinois Northwestern, Michigan, Ohio State, whatever, like those, the old school rivalries in the Big Ten, are going to happen at least once. So it was more like, how are they going to integrate these new teams? And we talked about the protected rivalries. At least for this first year, the home and homes between the West Coast teams are all with each other. So it's already like moving towards something I thought would happen with these mega conferences, which is you're going to have pods or, mini conferences within these mega conferences that are basically just like the old conferences. So if we sit here and get to like a 24, 30 team super conference, you're probably going to see them divided into divisions, which will basically be their own conferences. So, I don't know if that's going to be the same each year, that they're just going to keep the West Coast teams playing each other. And then, like USC and UCLA have an identical schedule, and Oregon and Washington have an identical schedule. So I guess they're going to do travel partners or something with those. But I was really excited about UCLA and USC coming to Indiana and Purdue. At Purdue, UCLA with, their most storied coach, John Wooden, having played at Purdue. Mick Cronin actually commented a few years back, they played at Mackey when they had that COVID NCAA tournament in Indianapolis. UCLA actually played their game in Mackey, and they walked through and saw the John Wooden history. And Mick Cronin was like, he and his team didn't really know all that history that existed because they learned about UCLA and how John Wooden's tied in out there. And then seeing also UCLA and USC go to Assembly Hall and not only play there, but play for a conference win. Like that's going to be kind of weird to see and kind of cool to see at the same time, like those teams playing there for a conference win. And then Rutgers and Maryland likewise go all the way across country to Oregon and Washington. So it's going to be, really interesting to see them play all the way out there, travel all the way across country to get a Big Ten win. Like, that's just going to look weird because Rutgers and Maryland are already not original Big Ten teams. So it's, you talk about seeing how the college landscape is changing. That's going to be a really good snapshot of, what the new college sports is looking like.
Yeah, I agree. I totally forgot about the John Wooden aspect there with UCLA and IU and all that history and everything going down there. So UCLA will make the trip to Indiana twice, not just Indiana, but also Purdue, going to Mackey Arena there as well. So that's going to be a really cool time to see them make that trip and do that as well. So I'm also excited to see Illinois at Michigan this year. I think that those are two teams that I'm kind of questioning what it's going to look like. If you watched our last episode, you saw me and Ryan kind of go into it a little bit with Illinois. He's very confident. I'm a little bit less confident than he is, and we kind of talked about that a little bit. But I'm excited to see what these two teams look like. Dusty Mays, I think, is a really good coach, and I think Brad Underwood is a really good coach too. But they both have some pretty new teams, and it's going to be interesting to see. Kent, you had some negatives. What are your negatives of the schedule?
I don't know if they're negatives. It's just things I would like to see. I would have liked to see Purdue and Illinois play twice. I think that that is a rivalry that is building, and I would have liked to see that game twice this year. And then kind of sticking on the Purdue theme, Northwestern only playing Purdue once as well. Would have been nice to see that twice. But obviously, it's impossible to get all the games that I want to see twice on the schedule when you have 17 other teams that you're trying to squeeze in there. But if I was making the schedule, I would have probably started with that. I would have said Purdue's playing Indiana, Northwestern, and Illinois twice, because those are going to be the best games, and they are the ones that I said, I think the other two, obviously Indiana already a rival, but the other two building to be a rival, for years to come. And then kind of disagreeing with Russ just a little bit here, I didn't like that we're doing the West Coast teams favors at all. Like, I think we should make them travel more. And they've already been playing these teams. We should, welcome to the conference, UCLA. You're going to Maryland twice this year. Or I'm sorry, not twice, obviously, but you're going to go to Maryland, and Maryland's coming to you. You're not going to play any of these West Coast teams twice is basically what I'm getting at. I feel like we did them, all four of them, a big favor by having their home and homes against each other, and I didn't like that because, they're new. I feel like there should be a bit of, not hazing, but, a little welcome to the conference. They should have to work for it a little bit. You guys with me on that?
Kinda, yes and no. Yeah. I feel like that was probably part of the agreement in coming into the Big Ten, that they were like, hey, okay, the first year, while you get used to your travel arrangements going across country, we'll let you play each other home and home this year, but next year we got to switch it up. Like UCLA and USC will probably stay home and home, and Oregon and Washington will probably stay home and home. But then your other two home and homes have got to be other Big Ten teams.
Yeah. I would like that more.
I looking at Nebraska there. They didn't do Nebraska many favors with their home and homes like they did with the teams out west. Nebraska has to Iowa. Yeah, that's a favor, I guess, because it's not as far, but they got to travel all the way out to Maryland. And then Ohio State is not exactly a short travel either for them. So, I mean, obviously out west, it's a whole lot of land. So it probably comes out similar to the Nebraska Ohio State travel there. But that's a good point. I didn't think about, all of them doing that and how that works. But Russ, we have a good question here from Philip. I feel like you'll have an opinion on. He says, would you like to have basketball split east and west, have more home and homes, not guaranteed to play every team every year? So you have more home and homes. You're kind of almost guaranteed. Indiana and Purdue play home and home every year. Michigan State plays home and home every year, that kind of stuff. But you are not playing every single team at least once per season. I mean, it's a good question by Philip. What would you prefer, Russ?
Well, then you get into, what's the point of a conference then? That's where especially old school people are hating the whole football side of things, because you have 17 other teams in the conference, but you only play 9 of them. So it's a lot of the luck on who's going to win the conference or even make a bowl game is going to be on what schedule you draw that year. So that's the one negative I have against the schedule is I want you to be able to play every team in the conference, but there should be more than 3 home and homes in conference play. Like that's a little ridiculous to me, and it's a little annoying to me that you don't play more home and homes. And I don't know about Purdue, Illinois being a rivalry because Purdue's won 5 straight, but yeah, Purdue playing more traditional Big Ten teams twice would be nice. Yeah.
It's a rivalry online for sure.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Well, they got all excited because they went from 11-9 in conference 2 years ago to actually challenging again this year. So, yeah.
I love the
shots. I like it. I like it, Russ. Bring the energy.
Kent, who would you say, looking at this, obviously we've not seen any of these teams play yet or anything like that, but just how the rosters and things like that, who would you say has probably the most difficult schedule from the way it looks right now?
I think that I go right back up to the top about the one that I'm most excited about. I think it's Indiana and Purdue because they have to play each other twice. And I think as it sits right now, I think those are the 2 best teams in the conference. So having to play either the first or second best team in the conference twice is difficult. If you look at Indiana, they also have to play Ohio State and Penn State twice. Penn State, up and coming, Ohio State, JR, we're not exactly sure what they're going to be next year, but I think that they'll be pretty good. And then Purdue has to play Michigan and Rutgers twice. So, like, gun to my head, I would say Purdue has the hardest schedule. They play Indiana, Michigan, and Rutgers twice. And then, obviously the other, whatever it would be, 14 games or whatever it is, they play everybody else. The easiest one, though, based on the roster, because I think UCLA is going to be very good, is their schedule. And I know they have to travel a lot still because they're on the West Coast, but we just talked about it. They have their 3 home and homes right there on the West Coast. And I think that with the games that they have and with the roster that they have, the coaching that they have, I think that they have the easiest schedule.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Who'd you say had the easiest?
UCLA.
I was going to say UCLA had the hardest. What?
Why do you say that?
I got some notes for why they're the hardest as well.
At Illinois, at Indiana,
well,
Maryland.
Here's why I'm here. Let me defend myself, okay?
Not allowed.
Okay, I won't defend myself. That's fine. No, everybody's playing everybody, right? So when you're really looking at who has the hardest schedule, you're only looking at those 3 home and home games. The teams that you have to play twice.
I disagree. Yeah, I disagree.
Because I didn't go deeper into like who exactly they are playing a home and away.
Yeah, so I kind of expected them to the first year do home and homes with the 4 West Coast teams. So then I looked at what their away games are. What's everybody's away games? Because the big thing in the Big Ten last year was that home court advantage was huge in the Big Ten, right? Like I think it was more dominant than any other power conference. So who do you have to play on the road? Like who do you have to earn road wins in to try to get a leg up on the rest of the conference? And if you're trying to make it the toughest for somebody, especially a new West Coast team, what would you say? Let's give them the 4 top finishers from the year before, and let's give them the 2 farthest teams from him in Rutgers and Maryland, and that's what UCLA and USC got, right?
But counterpoint though, Russ, that means that they're playing weaker teams at home though.
Right, but you don't need the advantage against a weaker team, right? Like I'd rather play at a depleted team to get that win easier and play the tough team at home and get the advantage against a tough team. You know what I mean?
I understand that. But what I'm trying to say is like if you're gonna lose one, why? I would rather play the harder teams away and just take the loss.
If you're a coach of a team that's a bubble team in the Big Ten and you're like, I want to get a key win, I want to play Purdue. Do you want to play them at home or away?
Away. I'll just take that loss and I'll play an easier team at home and get a win.
Then how's that help your conference resume? You beat the
because
easy
I'll have
team
more
at home.
wins. I'll have more wins. If I play Purdue at home and I lose.
How'd that work for Indiana State, though? I know they're not a Big Ten team, but I'm just saying, like, they had the wins, but wins aren't everything. You got to beat quality teams. And if you want a chance to beat a quality team, I'd prefer to play them at home than on the road.
I understand that point, but I guess what I'm trying to push back on is, though, if I get Purdue at home and then I lose, that's even worse.
I kind of see what Kent's saying because, like, if you can guarantee yourself, 9 wins at home because you play easier competition at home, like strength of schedule doesn't matter in conference. You're still going to get a better standing, I guess, in a tiebreaker, but the tiebreaker is then decided by, who you beat and stuff like that between each other. But I kind of see what Kent is saying. I still feel like I would not want to play Indiana and Purdue on the road, but I see what you're saying, Kent. So I can't necessarily fully disagree with it, but I do think that USC is going to have a hard time if they don't win all their home games of being a good team in the conference, because I don't see them beating Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Purdue, Rutgers, UCLA. I think they lose twice to UCLA, and I think they lose all those road games I mentioned. Maybe they beat Nebraska. I don't know. Well, actually, no. Nebraska's insane at home, so they're not beating Nebraska. They're going to lose all those road games, and then they're going to lose to UCLA both times.
Yeah, I was talking about UCLA when I said who had the easiest schedule because they have a good team.
Yeah, that's true.
USC's not good.
That's true.
I definitely would agree with your argument from a football standpoint, because that's about racking up 6 wins and getting to a bowl game. I feel like the committee has shown that quantity of wins isn't everything. You've got to get where did you beat the team and who did you actually beat. So, but I agree. I see your point. Like you want to get wins. At the end of the day, you have to have a good record to make the tournament. But yeah.
Good discussion there.
Also, sorry, I want to add one more thing too. I don't know if we got to the easiest, but the easiest schedule, not because of the roster, but if they had kept some of the guys that they've lost and some of the people that have broke Kent's heart, Minnesota, for an opposite reason, I feel like got a pretty good draw.
Yeah, they did.
Having Penn State and a reeling Wisconsin team as your double plays, and getting Illinois, Purdue, and Northwestern as home only in the barn. If they had kept their roster together, they'd have a pretty good shot at making the tournament this year.
And I mean, we don't have to get too deep into it, but like, is Michigan State going to be better this year or worse this year than they were last year? Because like, I like the Frankie Fiddler edition, but I still so much question what Tom Izzo is going to do with that front court, and he doesn't seem to want to play small ball. So like, I don't know. I don't love the outlook for Michigan State this year. They might struggle more this year than they did last year. I'm a big Jeremy Fears fan, but first year starting, primary ball handler, like, and he didn't even play last year hardly. Obviously glad he's okay, but I mean, am I wrong to think that Michigan State could be worse this year than they were last year?
No, you're not wrong. I mean, we got to wait and see, obviously, but after this past year watching them, like, nothing's going to surprise me with them anymore. Like, them not making the tournament is realistic in my eyes. I do have a question about Michigan State and Minnesota specifically, though. They're two teams I just noticed have to travel to the West Coast twice. Do you guys think they're going to try to set that up to where they can do it in the same trip, or no?
So Painter's actually talked about in some of his coaches shows being on like competition committees and different NCAA committees. And they've talked about when they do this schedule expansion, doing basically travel partners and pairing teams and pairing road games together. So like when UCLA and USC travel to Indiana and Purdue, you might see UCLA at Purdue and USC at Indiana on Thursday night. And then on Sunday, you'll see them basically swap arenas, and the other one will play it, and that's what they'll do. And you've noticed that they kind of pair those teams together in their schedules. Like they play at Minnesota and Wisconsin. So Minnesota and Wisconsin will probably be in the same weekend, at Maryland and Rutgers. So those will probably be in the same weekend. And then vice versa, when, Indiana and Purdue play at USC and UCLA, you'll see those games on Thursday night, and then they'll switch arenas on Sunday. And that'll make it a little bit easier on the travel for these teams.
Smart. I like that. Good insight. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what I'm here for. Don't tell Dylan.
Russ is smart. Good job, Russ. Yeah, Phil. Oh, I meant to click on Philip there. Yeah, Philip. That's the key for Michigan State. Fears and Booker. Are they going to take that jump and be who they need to be? So we shall see what happens with Michigan State. All right, guys, let's move on to our next piece here. So, if last week you enjoyed the banter back and forth between me and Ryan with Illinois, I mentioned a little bit that I also have some issues with Purdue. I just have issues with everybody, apparently. Sorry, Russ, I did not wear my Purdue shirt today. That's not come in from home field yet. So I'll wear it next episode that you're on when it's actually come in. But I don't have one for Purdue. It's like I did order it though. It's like a Pete guy. Anyway,
sure.
Want to bore people with my apparel choices, but essentially, like, Purdue has not taken anybody from the transfer portal. They've taken 6 freshmen in. Shocker, they have a 7'3" guy coming in this recruiting class, which is just so on par for Matt Painter. I love that. And so it's just a really, really interesting choice. You lose the National Player of the Year. Mason Gillis goes into the portal as well, 6th man of the year in the Big Ten. And, you still have Braden Smith, you still have Fletcher Lawyer, you still have Trey Kaufman-Renn, but he didn't bring in a piece that I felt like could secure that 3 spot or that 4 spot. Not saying that the piece that they bring in won't be good, but if you bring in, possibly a better piece that could hold that spot down, I feel like the outlook for Purdue this season could be better. But at the end of the day, I just don't know in this day and age of college basketball if I would rely on recruits as much as Purdue is. And that's kind of what I was getting at with Ryan is like, I don't think you should rely on transfers as much as Brad Underwood is. And these two programs are just like polar opposites, where Illinois literally has less scholarship players staying on the team than Purdue is bringing in recruits coming into their team. So Russ, I mean, help me out here, man. Is this a strategy you're okay with like 0 transfers? Because you saw what Lance Jones did last year. You saw how he was able to help. Is this something you're okay with? Or is this something where you're like, I wish Matt Painter would have taken at least 1 transfer?
Yeah, so this is where I'm going to cook again a little bit, as Dylan says. So just to educate some people, because I try to stay caught up on this show, not just because, JR, you're doing a great thing here and I want to take notes, but also I want to be able to rebut some things if I miss a few shows. And Purdue's actually over 1 scholarship next year as of right now. And that's without Gillis and without Morton. So Gillis and Morton both played 4 years at Purdue. So in a traditional world, Painter had basically recruited in a way that he was planning that they were going to be gone this year. So we didn't even have room for Gillis or Morton to come back this year. So for them to be like people we lost or they a culture loss, that no Purdue fan really sees it that way if they kind of know their stuff, because there was not room for them to come back. And then, like I said, we're still over 1 scholarship next year, so we don't have room to bring a transfer back. We're going to have somebody like maybe a Waddell or somebody give up a scholarship and maybe rely on NIL money to basically pay for their schooling, because that's an aspect that maybe many people haven't thought about in college sports now is, maybe you can keep extra players on your roster without a scholarship because you can give them NIL money to still cover their schooling. So we're still, like I said, we're technically over a player next year, so there's no room to bring in a scholarship player. And I think that, Heidi demonstrated at times, especially late in the season, that he could be that guy that steps in as a 3. And with 6 players, I think half these freshmen coming in could compete for a starting job right off the bat. So, and then also to say 6-man class, I wouldn't like that every year, but that's not the norm for Purdue. Like normally he brings in about 3 guys a year, but last year we only had 1 recruit, 1 freshman, which was Miles Colvin. Before that, it was 3 straight years with 3 recruits coming in. So that's not the norm for Purdue. Norm is 3 or 4 players, but he knew he was going to have some roster voids this year, or at least thought he was, until COVID and those kind of things, played a hand in some guys being able to play another year, and we had to make some decisions. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily dogging on like a 6-person class. If you maybe think like, oh, we're not going to be as good this year, let's bring the freshmen in, get us some time, and like things are going to be okay. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying Purdue's not going to compete for the Big Ten this year. At the end of the day, like they're going to compete for the Big Ten. This is Purdue. This is Matt Painter. Like this is what he's established at this program, right? I mean, that's what they're going to do year in and year out. The thing I look at is like, do they have enough pieces to contend nationally again? Like, are they going to be a real Final Four threat the entire year? Or is this going to be a team that possibly sneaks up? I mean, don't get me wrong. I believe in Braden Smith. I mean, I've been one of the Braden Smith defenders. I love me some Braden Smith and how he's able to pass the ball. But I have had my questions about Trey Kaufman-Renn and how that's going to work out. I know you believe in him much, much more than I do, Russ. But however, I just haven't seen it consistently. I've seen it in pieces here and there, but I haven't seen it consistently. Kent, tell me, who are you siding with here in this discussion, the recruiting versus the transferring? What are your thoughts here?
I'm going to side with you, kind of, I think. I think that it is a mistake to bring in 6 guys and not leave a spot open for how much talent was available in the transfer portal. Like, Russ, are you excited about all 6 of these guys that much that it closes off any opportunities to get anybody in the portal? Like, you can't be.
Yes. So
really,
we're bringing in another 7-footer. So for the 2 guys that we lost in the front court in Gillis and Edey, we're bringing in 2 7-footers to replace them in Jacobson and Will Berg. We've got a guy in Caleb First who didn't see the court in like 2 of our last 3 games, who Izzo himself has said he could be starting for pretty much any team in the Big Ten right now, but he's sacrificing majorly for Purdue. Kanan Catchings, if you watch Overtime Elite, has been playing very well this year. Jakari Harris, son of Glenn Robinson, is going to be a possible contender for a starting job this year. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm very excited about these guys. They're higher rated than what Painter usually gets. I believe they're, if I'm not mistaken, they're a top 10 class. I meant to look that up before this show, but yeah, it's a very talented class. I'm very excited. I think there is 1 or 2 red shirts in the class, but there's a lot of talent coming in this year for sure. Like these guys, I think Heidi and First are probably the incumbents in getting the starting 3 and the starting 5 spot for Edie and Jones leaving. But Harris, Colvin, even Catchings could challenge for a starting 3 job or 2 job, and then Jacobson and Berg are not to be slept on. You have 7-foot guys on the bench, like they're going to have a shot to start for a Matt Painter led team.
Okay. I don't think I don't think in my mind I'm looking at him and I'm like, these guys aren't talented. Like that's not what I'm saying. Like I just look at the freshmen around college basketball nowadays, and you don't see the freshmen in college basketball make this super big impact like you used to, partially because guys are sticking around longer because of NIL, and also guys are in their, 5th, 6th, sometimes 7th year. I mean, Seth Towns could have came back for his 9th year or something like that. I don't think he did, but he could have this year, which would have just been absolutely insane. But I mean, at the end of the day, I believe in Catchings. I think Catchings is going to be a good secondary ball handler for this team. I just question if he goes up against, a super veteran guard in the Big Ten, is he really going to, pick him apart a little bit, because he's going to look at him, he's going to see the inexperience. Catchings might have all the skill in the world, but if he has that inexperience, is it going to really hurt Purdue for a little bit in the game? I don't know. I'm not trying to say that Purdue, like I said, I'm not trying to say that Purdue's not going to contend for the Big Ten. They're going to contend. I just look at it and I'm like, if you possibly would have gotten a transfer or 2 instead of maybe 1 or 2 of these recruits, I think Purdue could be a consistent top 10 team again this year.
Well, so here's the thing, Braden Smith's going to play 35 minutes a game. Ethan Morton was technically our backup point guard last year, and he averaged maybe 3 or 4 minutes as a point guard last year. So, Harris or any of those guys are not going to be asked to run the point very much, if at all, this year. They have Braden Smith's going to play 35 minutes. Fletcher Lawyer's going to play 35 minutes. I think that Trey Kaufman-Wren's going to play 30, 35 minutes. So then you're only talking about these freshmen being asked to play anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes. So it's not like we're going to lean on them heavily, but you talk about freshmen in today's day and age, and that's one thing that frustrates me about Painter's going to get left behind in the transfer portal era. Well, transfer portal the NIL has been around for 3 or 4 years now, and Painter just made the Final Four with a team with 1 transfer. So we're in this. We've been in this for 3 or 4 years now, and he made the Final Four. So absolutely, this can work in this day and age. So I think that when look at last year, right? Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer started. Now the snapback's going to be we lost to a 16 seed in the tournament, but Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer started every single game for that team that won the Big Ten by 3 games and was a 1 seed in the tournament. So I do think that Painter can put freshmen in position to succeed in this conference and in this day and age.
I think that if I worked for Purdue, if I was on the coaching staff, I would love this strategy. We get our guys and we keep them. That's a great strategy. You can build a culture around that. It's awesome. As a fan, I would always want to have a spot open just for when someone enters the portal. There's that intrigue of hey, we could go get this guy, and you guys don't have that, which you're a little bit more level-headed about it. You don't care. You're excited about everybody that you already have and everyone that's coming in. But, as a casual fan, I get excited when guys move around, and it's intriguing to me, and it gets me excited about what the team can look like and how it's going to be different the next year. And Purdue just doesn't have that. But as I said, if I was working for Purdue, I would say this is how I want to build my culture. So I'm not disagreeing with how he's doing it. I'm just bored by it as a fan.
My bad, Jeff. I said Catchings. I meant Jakari Harris. He's the guard in the class. I just was looking at Catchings. So thank you for the correction there. Russ, Phillip looks like he has a question he's looking at here. He says, Braden Smith is proven to be elite, but who else do you trust next year? Lawyer, TKR have been inconsistent. I know you love TKR, so I know you're not going to agree with that, Russ, but everyone else isn't proven. Who's going to be the next guy in your mind? Obviously, like you said, Braden Smith, elite, but who's going to be that second kind of Robin to his Batman?
So, inconsistent is, we're talking about semantics there, because inconsistent in his production as far as filling the box score, yes, but his efficiency, no. Like I said, Edey played 35 minutes the last 2 years. So where is TKR getting his touches? The times that Edey got in foul trouble, or there's a game last year where Edey missed the game completely, TKR goes off for 20 plus. And Painter's already talked about how, TKR is doing a great job of paying his dues. And that next year he's going to get a lot more touches than he's been getting his first few years. And that he believes, and I believe Painter when he says this, because Painter's kind of the, Bill Belichick of Big Ten basketball, that he just says it like it is. And Drake Hoffman-Wren's a all Big Ten caliber player. Now, the problem with the new Big Ten and 18 teams is you could have like 10 guys that are first team all Big Ten caliber, but only 5 are going to make the team. But I do think Drake Hoffman-Wren can be that go-to post guy this year. But you're talking about Caleb Furst also getting more minutes. And Braden Smith is the only guy returning from the all Big Ten first team last year. So, we're returning the best player from the conference last year. Plus, Drake Hoffman-Wren's shown the ability to play well. And Heidi, I mean, you saw that dunk he had in the national championship game, so he's got the ability to put it in the bucket as well. So, I think that, Drake Hoffman-Wren or any number of guys could step up. Like I said, we got 2 7-footers too. We've seen what Purdue does with 7-footers in the past.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like in my mind, this is not like is Purdue going to be middle of the pack of the Big Ten or at the top? Purdue's obviously still going to contend for the top of the Big Ten. I mean, I'm really right now. I'm debating: am I going to choose Indiana or Purdue to win the Big Ten this year? Purdue's the one at the past 2 years. So 2 years or 3 years? They didn't win
2 years. 2 years. We lost it by 1 game back 3 years ago. So yeah,
that's right. So like they've won it the past 2 years, and they almost won it 3 years ago. So like I think at the end of the day, I'm gonna go with Purdue just because it's Matt Painter, it's Purdue and what they've done. But that's the biggest thing for me is like, are they gonna have the firepower to be able to make it to the national championship game again? That's the question for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Purdue's heard that. Purdue fans have heard that Indiana promise, year after year, coach after coach, that this is the year they're going to be picked to win the conference, and then they turn in an 11-9 season or a 12-8 season. So I'm not sold on Indiana. I think that, part of the reason I don't like the transfer portal lean is because to me, it's like playing 5-card poker, going all in and then turning in 4 or 5 cards and going, let's see what we got. Can it work out? Sure. You could draw 4 aces, but it's not guaranteed to work. You look at Team USA in the Olympics, right? Do we win the gold medal every single year? No, even though we have the best.
Yes, we do. USA.
You should, yes. And I'm not. Don't paint me as an anti-UCA. I'm just saying, like, you can have the best players, and if they don't work together, it's not going to work, right? Illinois, it worked last year, but 2 years ago with Shannon Jr. and Coleman Hawkins on that team, they went 11-9, and now you're talking about replacing all but 2 players on that team. Like, yes, there's talented guys coming in. There's no doubt. You're playing Division I in the Big Ten, in my opinion, the best basketball conference in the country. You're going to have talented guys on the roster, but until they actually get on the court and play together, how's it going to work? Khalil Ware was supposed to be IU saver last year, and they didn't even make the tournament.
Good question here from Kevin Greenwood. He says, for some reason, people have Purdue as an elite team or some top 2 team in the conference. I don't see it. Kevin, for me, I'll just give you my reason. I'm not going to tell you what to think. For me, I see Braden Smith, and I think he's one of the best point guards, at the very least, top 5, if not top 3 point guard in the nation, in my mind. And I think that Fletcher Lawyer is somebody that when he gets hot and he goes off, it's really, really hard to beat Purdue when that happens. Granted, like Russ said, production has been a bit inconsistent, but he's a guy that if he goes off and he makes it happen. And then, people don't realize, like, Drake Hoffman-Wren is, I think, the 3rd highest recruit Purdue has ever gotten in their history. So, if he can realize that potential, which, again, I'm just saying he's been a little inconsistent, but Russ makes good points that when Edey didn't play, he did go off in that game. If he can realize his potential, you have a really good team there. And like I said, a catching, very highly rated recruit, Jakari Harris, he's another good recruit. That's my question is, like, in those crunch time games, not throughout the entire season, in those crunch time games, if Jakari Harris is relied upon as a ball handler, can he make it happen? So that's just my reasoning, Kevin. Like I said, I'm not going to tell you what to think, but you guys have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that there's only, like, if you look at the conference, it's not that great next year. there's only going to be a handful of teams that are going to be in the conversation for even challenging. I think I could list 5 right now. It would probably be Purdue, Indiana, Illinois. I'm really high on UCLA, and I don't know who the 5th team.
Ohio State. Just kidding.
Ohio State, sure. So those 5 teams.
It's going to be a good front court, though. It's going to be a good front court.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sean Stewart and Aaron Bradshaw. Sorry.
Yeah. So, but I guess my point is, there's just not a lot of there's not a lot of teams that they have to beat really to be in, what Kevin's saying here, the top 2. I mean, at the lowest, I would say 4 for Purdue next year. That would be the floor. And, obviously maybe Michigan, Jeff. Yeah, maybe. All the other teams, though, even Illinois can be lumped into this conversation. Illinois, Michigan, UCLA, those teams all have, a lot of what ifs. Like, what if this guy's good? What if the coach is good? Like, for Michigan, Purdue doesn't have that. We know right now, obviously, we know what they're losing. We know what they have, and we know what their coach is going to be. So there's a level of consistency that can give me some confidence in saying they're a top 2 team. That's the difference between a Purdue and a Indiana even. They got a lot of transfers. Illinois got a lot of transfers. So they need everything to work out. Purdue, we know what we have with them. That's the difference.
Good point, Kent. Russ, you want a final word on the Purdue conversation here?
No, but he did say something that I brought up in a past show too, that, the Big Ten is a little bit mid as a whole next year, but I think that adding these 4 West Coast teams helps a lot of those middle-of-the-road Big Ten teams to maybe get over that hump and make the tournament. Like in Indiana, that, they should be much improved and even compete for the top. But even if they don't, I think they should go 3-1 or 4-0 against these new teams. And like a Northwestern and Nebraska, a Michigan, I think Michigan benefits greatly too from playing those 4 teams. I don't think that the floor of the Big Ten, I think, is going to be lower next year. But I think that helps a lot of these middling teams that have missed the tournament just barely by needing 2 or 3 more quality wins.
Could be. I know that there's teams looking right now like Iowa and Oregon and stuff like that are going to be near the bottom. I do kind of feel bad for Iowa. Owen Freeman's really good, and he just doesn't have anyone else. Philip says Indiana is relying on Rice and Carlisle, who were good in the bad Pac-12. Are they really as good as Indiana thinks? Transfers tend to get overvalued in the offseason. You bring up a good point, Philip. I do think that in my mind, Indiana has better shooting now, and I think they have better guard play than Gabe Cupps and Xavier Johnson. Personally, Trey Galloway is still there. I think Trey Galloway was asked to do too much last year. I think with a more appropriate role, it's kind of like Chucky Hepburn last year. 2 years ago, Chucky Hepburn was asked to do everything for Wisconsin, and he really struggled because when you ask a guy to do more than what he's capable of doing, it just doesn't look good. But then you put Chucky Hepburn in the role where he's a good defender, he orchestrates the offense, and he has playmakers and shot creators around him. It works out well. But hopefully with Trey Galloway this year, he's actually asked to do a role that is much better suited for him and not to be the it guy as guard.
And he left off the best transfer that they got, which is Ballo. I mean, he is good, for sure good, and they are relying on him, and they should.
Ballo and Renew is a scary combo in the front court. So if Ballo can play,
but he's making a good point though. Yes, there's the other guys though. Yeah, like, that's kind of what I was saying. Like, there's those other guys are like, what if they are good? Then Indiana's at the top. Like, that's kind of what I was saying about the difference between them and Purdue.
And what if Mike Woodson uses them the right way? I mean,
what a world that would be.
That's what I was going to say about Galloway. Galloway got, I think abused a little bit and pushed off to the side sometimes for Renew and Ware when, Galloway might have been having a hot night, but they just kept feeding Renew and Ware and maybe lose a game by a bucket or 2 at the end. And it's like, come on, like, Galloway's done so much for this team. If he's the hot hand, play the hot hand.
Yep. Ryan brings up Goody as well, coming in from Illinois, shooting 40% from deep. Goody is a very, very good ad for Indiana this year. So it's Goody ad. Yeah. Gonna be a lot of Indiana basketball, Indiana matchups this season. I'm here for it. I love Indiana basketball, and if UCLA can shimmy themselves in there as well with the whole John Wooden conversation, it's gonna be a fun season. So
Oh, I have a fun question, JR. Sorry, one last thing, real quick. I know we've been going long on this. If you had to pick the next state to make a Final Four, which state would you pick? Would it be Indiana? Would it be the state of Michigan? You get Michigan and Michigan State. Would it be Illinois or California? Next state to get a Final Four team.
I mean, I'm going to pick Indiana.
Okay.
It's either Purdue
that wasn't
Indiana.
as exciting as I thought.
Well, but if I'm thinking the second one's more interesting because I look at either Illinois, California, or Michigan. I think Michigan has 2 coaches that can definitely get there. I think California
have gotten there.
Have gotten there. You have a team that can definitely get there with a coach who can get there, and then you have USC with a coach who can, who has had a good career, but Musselman hasn't got to the Final Four yet, right? Farthest he got was the Elite Eight, I think, at Arkansas. I think that was the year he took his shirt off, which I need him to do that after a Purdue game or something like that. Just see that.
I'd prefer not because the meaning behind that is that Purdue lost. So let's not see that.
Well, but no, it's actually they hit the shot and then Trey Kaufman-Renn hits a buzzer beater full court shot and then he's just standing there shirtless and sad.
In Mackey Arena because it's at Mackey this year, so it'll look real awkward.
Exactly. So, yeah. All right. Yeah. Russ, you have a thought on that? Indiana, Illinois, California?
When he said state before he listed options, I was thinking chaos. So I was thinking like North Dakota, like give me some random, some Jackrabbits in the Final Four or something.
North Dakota, Alaska, Maine.
Just the obscure Final Four like Hawaii, North Dakota State, Idaho, and Montana. Final Four. Yeah. Boom. The ratings on it be through the roof.
We're going to take a commercial break really fast, tell you about home field and CBB analytics, and then we'll come back and we're going to talk some Michigan and Dusty May. Looking to rep your alma mater or your favorite team in style? Look no further than Home Field. Home Field, based in Indianapolis, is your go-to destination for premium collegiate apparel. With a passion for comfort and a flair for vintage design, Home Field brings you officially licensed gear that is cozy as it is stylish. With over 150 colleges to choose from, Home Field digs deep into the archives, uncovering forgotten logos, iconic mascots, and legendary moments to create apparel that is truly one of a kind. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com. Use my code TBTH for 15% off for new customers, or use my link in the description. If you're a serious college basketball fan, you need CBB Analytics. CBB Analytics isn't just another stat site. It's the ultimate destination for in-depth basketball analysis. Used by fans and coaches alike, CBB Analytics delivers stats that you won't find anywhere else. It has comprehensive stats for men's and women's basketball across Division 1 through 3, dating all the way back to 2018. From shooting percentages to game recaps, CBB Analytics has it all. Head on over to cbbanalytics.com. With their user-friendly interface and extensive selection, you'll have all the stats you need right at your fingertips. Don't miss out. Try CBB Analytics for free or pay for a pro tier for your basketball knowledge to grow to the next level. CBB Analytics, where every stat tells a story and every game is a masterpiece. We're back, and we're talking some Dusty May and his comments on NIL. Whenever a coach talks about NIL, it always perks me up to see what they think and what their thoughts are. Dusty, in particular, this time he didn't really necessarily go in on NIL. Some of these coaches really get mad about it. I watched the press conference. I was really impressed with the way that Dusty handled himself. Obviously he didn't look. He's not somebody that particularly likes NIL, I think. I think that he's glad players are getting paid, but just the whole thing around it with, guys just trying to get a bag and stuff like that, you can tell that's not really something he enjoys. But I was really impressed with the way he talked about it and just some of the stuff he had to say. There's a quote there at the bottom. If you're listening on podcast, I'll read it. Dusty May said on NIL, if the absolute top dollar is what you're looking for, then we're probably not going to have what you're looking for. Dusty's just pointing out that relationships, development, stuff like that, that's going to be the stuff that he continues to point to. He's not saying they're not paying guys, but he is saying that you're not going to find the deepest bag here. This isn't This isn't somewhere where AJ Storr is going to go make, $1.5 million or something like that. AJ Storr can go there and get developed. Obviously, that didn't happen. But he could go there and get developed, but he's not going to go there and make $1.5 million. So, Kent, your thoughts? Does Michigan have NIL issues, or is Dusty May just being smart with the way he's approaching NIL?
I don't know. I didn't write this down, but it just came to me. It's just so ironic that the University of Michigan is the place where they're claiming that they're not going to pay players now. It's just funny to me. Like, Jalen Rose is like, seriously? We used to get paid back in the day. No, I think that I forgot what you even asked, but I think it was smart what he said, whether it's true or not, because he gets out in front of it and kind of, first of all, he looks good by saying that. Like, I care about other things other than money, and that's what all coaches should be saying anyways. It should be about developing the players and building relationships, like you said, JR. But also, it just kind of sets the precedent year one for anyone who's looking to come into Michigan from the portal or wherever, even high school kids, that, you're not going to get the biggest amount of money coming there. And that's something that, it's out there now. So he can say, I already told you that you're not getting X amount of dollars. So he's out in front of it. And like I said, whether that's a smart thing to say, it's smart to say it because at least it's out there now. So that's kind of how I feel about him saying that.
Russ, what do you think?
I mean, I saw it as his way of kind of trying to get some more people to donate. We saw it pick up steam this last football season where more and more coaches are coming out going, hey, we don't exactly have the most money in NIL, so if you could donate, I went to the Purdue spring game and more than once they're like, hey, there's the collective, like if you want to donate and want the best players, I think that coaches are more and more going to find ways to always make it seem like they're just the poorest program and we need more money and please donate. Well, it's also kind of a shot at where Michigan basketball has been the last couple of years, right? Like you got to win games to get money, so until they start winning games, you're not going to see alumni going, yeah, here, take all my money. Like, let's go, like I think there was after the Purdue game this year, there's one of the Michigan players was complaining about the fans not showing up to the game. And it's like, well, win games. If you don't want Purdue to be the home team at Michigan, you're going to have to put a good product on the floor. And that shows the ability of the coach. Like, how can you put the pieces together and develop them to then just kind of build momentum and get more NIL money, go get better players, et cetera, et cetera. But my favorite part about that press conference from Dusty May was when he talked about the locker room needing to be full of people that sacrifice, right? Like, especially if you're going to have a winning program and a winning team, you're going to have people that are starter calibers coming off the bench, or maybe even playing very minimal minutes, or sacrificing looks and sacrificing shots because there's only one basketball. Not everybody on the team can average 15 shots a game. So, I think it is the new wave NIL. I think that's how it's kind of balancing out is, you can't, you have these players for maybe 1 year now, at most 4 years. Like you can't promise them the world and give them a bag and then turn around and ask the donors for, hey, give me a few more million now.
You don't think this year's team was sacrificing, Russ? Michigan's team? You don't think they were sacrificing?
They were sacrificing wins. That's what they were doing.
They definitely were doing that.
Doug was not sacrificing his time in studying, though. That was not something he sacrificed. So, sorry, Doug. That was a shot, but so just to read what Russ was talking about there, I was planning on reading this part because I do think it might kind of be a little bit of Dusty May talking about a certain transfer portal guy, but we'll get into that here in just a second. Dusty May said, right now, that's probably not feasible. I think everyone in our locker room will be making sacrifices, whether it's financial, whether it's minutes, and that's ultimately a great team. Have probably got 8 or 9 guys that deserve a start that is capable of starting. So he's saying that he wants his team to have 8 or 9 guys deep that are capable of starting. And if you have that, obviously, like, there's not many schools out there. Yes, Michigan is a very large school and they, very well could have a lot of people donating, but there's not many schools out there that can pay, 8 or 9 starting caliber players to be on their team, especially if not all of them are going to be starting at some point. Kent, somebody that was directly linked with Michigan because of his old coach being Dusty May was John L. Davis. And there were rumors about, John L. Davis wants this big bag. And yes, he wanted to go play for Dusty May. At one point, there was rumors that like he didn't fit in academically, we found out pretty quickly that the guy that was reporting that was a fraud, and I think most people have figured that out by now. But he'll tweet whatever he tweets just to get interactions and things like that. But at the end of the day, like, you think this was Dusty May talking about John L. Davis a little bit and being like, "Hey, dude, like if you didn't want to come here to play on a good team, get developed and stuff like that, if you're not willing to sacrifice, there's not a place here for you." What do you think, Kent?
I thought that the quote that I actually pulled a different quote that was more of I think a direct shot at him, but
read it.
Maybe it wasn't. But the part that I took as a shot was if there's a young player that has a very limited value professionally, and they have a chance to maximize that. Is that the part? That's not the part you just read, is it?
No, that's not the part, but that is a good part.
He said if you have a chance to maximize your value to make the most money, basically go do that. I'm paraphrasing that last part, but if that wasn't a shot at him, then it certainly sounded like one. But I don't know, obviously, Dusty May. I don't know John L. Smith or John L. Davis. So and I don't know what their relationship is, and it would really come as a shock to me if that's how Dusty wanted to start his career at Michigan, is by taking shots at former players. So I think that it was more of a generalization than it was a direct, anecdote right straight to Davis. I that's how I took it. But, when I read that part, I was like, ew, that sounds like he could be talking about him directly, but maybe he probably wasn't, though. I don't think he was.
Well, and he might not be talking about him directly, but the experience could definitely impact what he's thinking, right? We know somebody and I know this isn't a football show, but we know somebody like Nick Saban was always talking to his players in the press conference whenever things like that were going on. You could tell stuff that was going on. But I think sometimes coaches just say stuff because of something that's going on, because it's fresh in their mind and it's something that's going on. And if I'm Dusty May and John L. Davis is requiring a bag, and I'm like, dude, I've been your coach for years now. We went to a Final Four together. Vlad is coming here. You need to put this stuff aside. There's so many more important things in life than just getting a bag. I mean, he could just be hurt as well. So it might not be him taking a shot, but it might just be fresh on his mind. So I think it's a good point, Kent.
Where did he end up going?
Oh, where was it? I'll have to look it up.
I'll look it up.
Okay. Russ, what were you thinking while we look it up?
Yeah, while you're looking it up, I was just thinking it was more like a laying the groundwork of his, idea of how he's going to build a team, his foundation and how he's going to have conversations with any recruit or any transfer portal player. This is the way I see it. This is my philosophy. If the shoe fits, then wear it. But it's not a personal thing. It's just, I'm going to build my team this way. I want to lean towards. He even talked about leaning towards recruits. He enjoys building a team, building relationships. And he compared the transfer portal to speed dating, right? So because it's hot and heavy, real fast. You got to just jump in there, get your name out there, and then hope the guy works out. And that's why I think a lot of the transfer portal guys don't work out and they play for 3 or 4 different teams already at this point in their career, because what's more likely to work out in a relationship, right? A long courting relationship and figuring out their likes and dislikes and and working your way into it and then making it last long term, or a 30-second date and deciding whether you're going to get into a year-long relationship with this person.
He ended up committing to Arkansas, by the way, which if he was looking for a bag, he's not going to find it there, is he? There's no way.
I mean, right? Arkansas.
Yeah, Calipari. Part of that deal he took was that he was going to get a bunch of money.
That was a joke about Calipari, yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Oh,
it missed. I was
going to say, I guess I could see they paid Calipari too much. This is another thing I think, and this isn't so much related to Michigan, is I heard somebody say it the other day, and I want to get you guys' thoughts on it. I know we're running out of time, so we'll do this quick. But do you think there's a strategy out there for some of these schools to hire a coach that costs less money so they can put more money in NIL? Because the guy that he referenced, and I'm not trying to be Homer here and talk about him, but the guy that he referenced was Jake Diebler, where he said, look at Ohio State. They're spending all this much money in the portal, going after guys from Kentucky, guys from Duke, stuff like that. I mean, if you look at Diebler, if you look at his contract, he's making pennies compared to other Big Ten coaches, but they have the NIL to go after some of these big name guys right now. Do you guys see that being a possibility, or am I crazy here?
I hope that's not going to happen. I mean, That's definitely not the intention of NIL, is for the school to pour money into getting more players and paying coaches less. So I hope that doesn't happen, but will it happen? Absolutely. Absolutely, that's going to happen somewhere. But it seems illegal. And you know what? I can't stand for anything illegal anymore. I can't do it. We need some rules. You're not allowed to do that, schools. You got to pay the coach as much money as you possibly can. You're not allowed to donate to your own school's NIL. That has to be funded by the fans and outside sources. And, if I have to start a committee to monitor this, I'll do it. And the first person I'm hiring is you guys.
Kent loves the NCAA. You heard it here first. Kent loves the NCAA. He wants order, everybody.
He's just trying to create a new NCAA. A better
more
NCAA.
Government. That's what I want in the NCAA. More government. It's always worked. Look at history, guys.
We need a dictatorship here. This isn't a democracy. Russ, your thoughts on paying a coach less to get more NIL?
Yeah, so that was, some sources and things I heard around here, being in close to the Kentucky area, was that was part of the deal for Calipari going to Arkansas. Is he did take a pay cut, and part of the deal and part of the negotiation was, how much is the bankroll going to be for NIL here if I come here? How much are the donors? How much are people going to give for me to build my roster or bring guys with me or whatever? And it's 100% part of the game now. Is what it is.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Kim Jong
Dylan's unhinged here. Kim Jong Kent over here. I think with that, we'll move on to our last topic here. All right, guys. So there's a tournament going on in Las Vegas. Don't know if everybody has heard about it, but essentially this is like an NIL tournament where like the schools are going to be getting paid $1 million essentially to come out to this tournament. And if you win the tournament, you make more money. And the whole idea is like the players are actually going to be making money playing in this tournament. And if they win this tournament, right now they have 8 teams. I don't have the entire list in front of me, but I know Oregon and Rutgers are the 2 Big Ten teams that are in it. Next year, they're hoping to add some more kind of blue bloodish type schools. I know Duke is on their list. Michigan is on their list as well. So I think not UCLA. Kansas is on their list as well. So there's some other ones in there that they're looking at to possibly be in there. Russ, just your thoughts on this tournament happening. It's like NIL. Like, what are your thoughts here? Do you like this? Do you dislike this? I don't know how to feel about it.
It makes me nervous. Because it's trending towards one of those things that you'd say the boomers, the oldies were fearing when NIL started coming out, was what kind of bidding wars are going to happen? How much is money going to be involved in the NCAA? Because it still is supposed to be college athletics and about schools, and now it's becoming more and more about the money. And that's going to happen when it's as big of an industry as what it is. But is this what the exempt tournaments are going to turn into? Is just bidding wars? Like, which exempt tournament can bankroll the most money? And then if it's successful, what's to stop them from taking over the NCAA tournament and saying, hey, and we're going to do a tournament in March instead, and we're going to bid on these teams? And then do you start to see a split like you see in high school sports, where you have some prep schools that aren't actually part of the IHSAA with the Indiana High School Athletic Association? You see the, college athletics just start to splinter even more because of the money issue. So I'm nervous. I'm going to be paying attention to see how successful it is and what it might lead to in the future, because I think it will start to change the landscape of college athletics. Do
you wish that Purdue was playing in it?
I don't really care either way. I don't care. I don't think. I'll be watching. I'm glad Purdue's not part of the first one, because I can kind of see what happens. And if it's a train wreck, Purdue's not a part of it. But if it's all about the money, then Purdue's not a part of it. So Purdue fans aren't, never been, we're not the Ohio State, we're not the Michigan, we're not the school that we know has all the money. So
that's what I was thinking, though, is like for schools that don't traditionally have all of the NIL, but are very good programs like Purdue. I mean, I think even Purdue fans have told me Purdue is not, a huge NIL type of school. Like Matt Painter builds that program off of kind of like what Dusty May was talking about here, and guys really buy into it and go there for that. That's not to say they don't get paid. I'm just saying that like it's not like Arkansas up there or something like that. So that's what I thought, is like schools that maybe don't have as big of NIL resources might get in on this. But Kent, your thoughts on this whole tournament?
Well, Russ, you have nothing to worry about, because once my committee gets their hands on this tournament, we're going to make sure that the funds are allocated correctly and that everything is, just above the table and we can see it, and we're going to make sure the money moves correctly and gets in the right people's hands, and it's all done legally. We're going to make sure of that as soon as the NCAA hires us here. No, I'm excited about it, though. I'm actually going to go in the complete opposite direction. Let's double down on this, and let's have the $1 million at center court right next to the announcers right at the championship game. And I actually had an idea. I wrote this down. This is not a joke. The winning team, we're not going to even put it, we're going to skip the whole NIL thing and try to filter it in that way. It's going to be the winning team gets the money right there after the game. There's going to be a big presentation, and the amount of money that you get is based on how many points, rebounds, blocks, and assists that you got, or whatever stat your coach wants to predetermine. But the coach has to determine it before the tournament. Like, if we win this, we're going to divide up these stats, and however many you get, it'll kind of be like fantasy points, right? If you get the more fantasy points, and then you get that percentage of the pot, and the players get to put it in their duffel bags and walk back to the locker room right after the game. I think we should just go all in on this, and it'll be really exciting. I think that it'll make fans want to stick around for the presentation, and I think it'll be really fun. I think we should do that.
Jeff had the same thought I did, that it's in Vegas, so they're just doing it like World Series of Poker. You're playing right there with the money on the table. Let's go.
Why not?
I love the idea of Braden Smith bringing the ball down the court and Fletcher Lawyer just steals it out of his hands and shoots a three really fast or something like that. It's like, dude, come on. It's like, no, I gotta get paid, man. I haven't hit a three yet today.
It's real time. You hit the three and then you run by midcourt and pick up a bill and stuff in your pocket.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Oh
yeah. Or there's a ticker.
Just pass go, pick up your $200 and
there's a little thing on the side that every time someone hits a shot, it increases the amount of money that they're going to win if they win the game.
Just
and it kind of builds up as we go
coming
through.
out the side of guys' shorts as the game's being played.
Well, no, Jeff has the right idea here. You have pockets in your shorts, so you get the money, and then you have to go put it over on the bench. So that's a part of it, and then you just have piles of money over on the bench next to the court there. So
I like it.
And that's
I think
the
this
downfall.
is a good idea.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is a great idea. Do you know
who confetti coming down for the winter? I think he means winter. A whole bunch of money comes down. All the players have to grab it. You see Trey Kaufman. Oh my gosh! Did you see Zach Edey just punching the entire Purdue team, just going for all the money? I mean, he was Canadian. He didn't get to make NIL, so he really would have gone hard for all that NIL money.
And he played hockey, so he knows how to body check a dude. So
that's true. Oh my gosh! Could you imagine Zach Edey body checking you? You break the glass.
That's true.
Oh my gosh!
Do you know who I know the article didn't say, but I think there's 7 teams that have already committed to this year's tournament, and then they still haven't decided the 8th. I mean, this feels like an Illinois thing, doesn't it? They're going to be out there. They got to be, right?
I like this comment from Ski U Pod. Yeah, no, I my thought when I was reading that, because I read the same thing, is we have football teams out here scheduling 10 years in advance their non-conference games because they're heaven forbid we have to schedule anything within a year. And then we have this Las Vegas tournament that's going to have millions of dollars at stake. And they're oh yeah, 6 months out, we're fine. Or 7 months out, we're fine. We'll find an 8th team here soon. It'll come. Why is basketball so much more chill about scheduling their stuff than football is?
Probably just easier to schedule stuff like the arenas and whatnot. I don't know. I have no idea why it's like that.
It must be. I don't know.
There's less people traveling. You just get a bus and go. You got to move 120 people when you travel with a football team.
Michigan's rumored to be the 3rd team out of the 16 from the Big Ten. So, I mean, are we cool with only 3 Big Ten teams being a part of this? I mean, if the Big Ten really is a Power 2 conference, I know that's more of a football term, but it's also kind of a basketball term with how much money they're making. Shouldn't the Big Ten have more representation than 3 teams, Russ?
Yeah, but wouldn't it also be weird to see Big Ten teams matching up in an exempt tournament? Because that's normally something that's, if you have an 8-team field, you never have more than 1 team from the same conference in it. So that'd be a new look as well.
What do you mean by an exempt? What do you mean by that? I guess I don't understand that.
Like the example, like Battle for Atlantis, Maui Invitational, the PK, Invitational, whatever. Those are like basically you can they don't count towards your scheduled games. You have a certain number of games you can schedule set on the schedule, and then you can play a 4-team or 8-team event or whatever and travel wherever, if it's Bahamas or whatever to play however many games. So, but as far as I know, there's some kind of rule where you can't have more than one team from the same conference in the same event.
Well, this tournament says screw the rules. We're going to pay all the players, and
I mean, yeah, you're paying teams $1 million. I don't think they care about the rules. They're like Kent. They're going to make their own new rules.
I like
this is a ridiculous little like nugget to have in your back pocket for recruiting, especially guys out of the transfer portal. Like, if you're like, hey, we're playing in the Vegas tournament next year, guys are going to be like, oh, and they can. I mean, coaches would be able to be like, hey, we're playing in the Vegas tournament. We're already going to be able to for sure give you X amount of dollars, and if we win it, you'll get this much more.
I mean, let's just start having open auctions. Like, when you get into off season, where there's already
sounds a little dangerous.
Your start from
that sounded bad.
Pause. Back up. Yeah, never mind. I didn't say that.
That sounded real bad.
Take that out. Take that out. All right, I'm gonna leave.
It's live, Russ. I can't take it out. No, I see what you're saying though. Like at the end of the day,
I was going more fantasy football style, like when you do the auction draft.
Like if it just keeps going and getting like this, it's just like none of these games are actually going to be just for who wins and who loses. It's all going to be just for like can we play in the tournament and make this much money? And so it's a interesting situation. So we'll see. I wanted to make sure I clicked the one that still showed Russ and not his old man logo there. Russ, where can people find Boiler Express?
Yeah, just search Boiler Express anywhere you find podcasts or get your media. We're at Boiler_Express on X and on Instagram. We try to put out a pod at least once a week, and we get a few guys on shows like Big Ten Huddle. So come check us out.
Philip is asking if we saw the first pitch at the Cubs game. I think he's talking about the Zach Edey pitch. Did you guys see it?
I did.
It was pretty bad. I think he was trying to really rip it and tried a little too hard and held on to it for a second too long. Pulled that thing.
Oh, if he's a hockey player and a basketball player, and
he played baseball. He was his first goal in sports was to be the tallest pitcher in MLB history.
Wow.
Well, too late.
It might be after that pitch.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody in the bullpen was like, "Wow, give that guy a cap." Kent, Big Ten casual. Is that all you want to talk about on Twitter?
Yep, casual Big Ten. You said it in reverse, JR. Come on, man. It's not that late. Yep, just on Twitter. I post something every single day, except for Monday. I didn't post anything. Had a golf tournament on Monday, fundraiser for my kid's school, so I didn't post anything. I think that's the first time this year I didn't post anything all day. But, casual Big Ten on Twitter. And I'll be here every once in a while.
Have any more million views tweets since your Cooper DeJean?
No, but yesterday I did have a good one. It was I basically was trying to do football rivalries, but then put two basketball teams against each other and used players from the last 5 years. And I did Purdue and Illinois yesterday, and that one took off really well. But people got so upset with me because I didn't have the 5 best players in their mind, and I never said in the tweet that that's what I was doing. I just had 5 really good players and tried to make an interesting matchup. And the only reason why it got so much traction is because everyone was so mad that I had Fletcher Lawyer and for Illinois I had Matthew Mayer. And people were mad because, and again, I never said it was the 5 best players. I just said it was 5 players from the last 5 years. So, I don't know. Can't win on Twitter.
You mean somebody got upset with you on Twitter? Somebody got upset on a simple...
I know, man. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe because people are usually, so level-headed on there.
Yeah.
And, so nice.
I was going to say, you mentioned Purdue and Illinois in the same tweet, and people weren't level-headed and nice.
That's right.
Shocked.
I sent that tweet out, and one of my friends has been accusing me of sending bait tweets, and I told him, I sent that link to him, and I was like, This one was bait. This one was. I hand up on this one. This one was on purpose. I put my hand up.
I got accused of clickbait the other day by all Michigan State fans. Michigan State fans hate me, and I don't even have a problem with Michigan State, but their fans hate me. I posted that article about AJ Hoggard, and they don't like me. So, but I don't think they liked me from the beginning anyway. So,
why would they care about him? He's leaving.
Well, I titled it "Tom Izzo forces out AJ Hoggard to downgrade," and people took it as Tom Izzo is downgrading because he forced AJ Hoggard out, not AJ Hoggard is downgrading. Even though in the article I clearly wrote that, people don't actually read the article. I clearly wrote
another shocker. People reacted to the headline and didn't actually read the article.
Even the headline. I followed
on?
the headline perfectly when you just said that. I'm sure people didn't even read the headline correctly.
Probably not. Yeah, I told one guy, he was like, "No, your headline is grammatically inaccurate," and I was like, "Oh, you're the only person that's told me this, so I think it might just be you." But it is what it is. So, but I mean, in my mind, like USC, Washington, who were the other ones? I don't even remember who. Vanderbilt, Georgia, and Florida. Those were his 5 options. Like all 5 of those are clear downgrades from Michigan State, right? Washington, USC maybe not as much because Eric Musselman is there now.
Yeah.
But still, like this season coming up, they're not going to be as good as Michigan State, I don't think. And then Vanderbilt, Georgia, and Florida, like those are all downgrades from Michigan State. So
maybe we'll see how bad they are next year.
I think so, but you're right. We'll see. We'll see if Musselman has some magic. So, all right. Now we're just rambling about our mentions on Twitter. So thank you everybody for watching the Big Ten Huddle. We will be back Tuesday. Russ will actually be with us Tuesday to talk football, and a Michigan State fan. So I was just talking about how Michigan State fans hate me. So we'll have one on with us Tuesday night, talk some football. I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about yet. It's the off season, so I'll probably think of something creative. And then Kent will be back with us next Wednesday, right, Kent?
Absolutely. I wouldn't miss it. How could I? How could I?
Love it.
I'm probably going to get canceled. I don't know. This might be my last podcast.
No, dude, that was fine. Maybe I made it bigger than it was, but it just,
Well,
right.
Dylan was the only one that said yikes. Nobody else said anything in the comments, and Dylan is high on his flu medication. So,
yeah, that's true.
If Dylan is the only one reacting, I think you're okay, Russ.
We'll see. We'll see. Things don't get shared on the internet too much, so we'll be all right.
Yeah, that's true. People have they'd have to watch the whole episode to get to that part.
This is like almost an hour and a half long, so.
Yeah, it'd be tough. We can make it longer.
Just hide it. Just keep the longer you talk, the more it gets hidden in there, the more
Just bury it in there.
I had somebody tell me the other day, because I was talking about like how I'm starting to earn money on YouTube now. And they were like, well, if you do like a 6-hour live stream, that's the best way to earn money. And I was like, really? And they were like, yeah, just get somebody on there with you. So the way YouTube works is if it's a shorter video, they have to watch for a certain amount of time to make a certain amount of money. But if it's a longer video, the amount of time they have to watch is like it shrinks. So it's not like exact percentages. I don't understand it exactly, but they told me like if you put out like a 10-minute video, they have to watch like 4 minutes of it to make a bunch of money. But if you put out like a 6-hour long podcast, they have to watch like 10 minutes of it and you make money, which yes, it is longer, but at the same time, like it's nothing compared to watching 4 minutes of a 10-minute video versus 10 minutes of a 6-hour video. So if you guys ever want to do a 6-hour long podcast, let me know.
Well, it's funny you say that. I know we're really burying it in there now because when I do the when NCAA football comes out, I'm going to start streaming the new game.
Yeah.
So if you want to sponsor me, I had an idea for the first day it comes out. I'm going to do a stream until I get 10 wins online. That's definitely going to take at least 6 hours.
What platform?
And then you can just be like the announcer the whole time. We could do it right here.
I'll be your Gus Johnson.
You can be on like what, Xbox or
Maserati Mar.
Okay. Yeah. We'll just set it to like 15-minute quarters, like no accelerated clock, and we'll just No,
I'm playing online. I'm playing against people. That's the only way I can get excited about playing.
Yeah, you need to get Big Ten football players to play against.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Get like, I don't know, some football players in the Big Ten and play against them. I've had Jeff's comment up here for a while because we were supposed to end the show like 3 minutes ago. But thank you, Jeff, for saying good show, guys. Apparently it was so good we just kept going on. So we're going to end it here. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Appreciate it. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Kent, for being here. We'll see you next time, everybody.